Welcome to our pod. And by that, I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who usually do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time, except when it is a Tuesday and we are celebrating the release of a friend's book and welcoming to the podcast Adam Bassett. Welcome.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me back.
Of course, we're so excited to dive into your book. As many know, Adam has been on our podcast before to discuss his books Digital Extremities and Animus Paradox, and he has also
go read those.
Been on a TV Tuesday episode for Daredevil. But today we're discussing your new YA fantasy book released today, Copper Skin, Oaken Lungs. Adam, can you tell readers a little bit about this new book and series?
Yeah, so this is a post-apocalyptic fantasy book. On the short side, it's about 270 pages, and about 10 or 15 of those is like glossary and pronunciation guide and map and all of that fun stuff.
Your sweet spots.
Yeah, exactly. And it's about a couple of sisters and a brother through a blended family who together kind of ended up trying to help take care of what, to everybody's knowledge, is the last town in existence in this sort of magical post-apocalypse where this deadly mist has kind of surrounded it. And they have a means to hold it back, but they can't really push it away. And the first half of the book is sort of like, let's try and survive this. And the second half of the book is we kind of accidentally have to confront it. And it's, I view it as a book about kind of holding on to hope in a very dark time, and simultaneously how easily things can kind of spiral out of control. And that's made it very hard to explain. My quick explanation has gone on several minutes, I think.
I was thinking when I was like reading it, and also just hearing you kind of talk about this a little bit, I hate making comps because I feel like they never fit exactly, but I got a lot of vibes of like kind of the situational feel of Attack on Titan as what is happening in this book, where we have like kind of this trapped group of people who are kind of forced to face the outside.
Laura sounds so much better. I kept thinking about M. Night Shyamalan's The Village.
We should rewatch that, Hannah.
Wow, this is very comparable to M. Night Shyamalan's The Village. Is there going to be a twist where we find out that the mist isn't deadly? And then I was like, no, the mist is very deadly, actually. Hannah, thinking about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of my original inspirations, the book actually is inspired originally by the music of Tautu Metas, a Latvian ethno-pop group, specifically their song Burman Laimi, which if you are like me and have gotten into the Eurovision scene in the past couple years, Burman Laimi was Latvia's entry last year in that contest. So that's kind of how I encountered it. And I just really grew to enjoy the song, and the lyrics were really interesting. And even like the music video felt very like fantasy coded. It was the women in this group were all dressed up basically as like fairies and like venturing through a forest, and that sort of like began to get mixed in with ideas from things like Under the Dome by Stephen King and Annihilation by Vandermeer.
It's one of my favorites.
And yeah, so like it very much moved away from that original inspiration and kind of became this weird blend of things. Like, I mean, even the first part of the book is almost cozy in the way where like everybody is participating and helping each other out, and like the biggest problem in the girls' lives is they want to go see some birds.
They don't know whether to intervene or not when a baby bird is hatching, and it's like,
yeah. And so it is this kind of difficult to explain because it's so many different inspirations and concepts, and there's 5 major parts, and they are all very distinct tonally in some ways. But yeah, I think that blend is part of what makes it so special to me and so fun to read, is like you do kind of in a very short time span get this really deep sense of like, the ideal version of this last town in existence, but also the sort of like this tension lurking beneath and what that forces the siblings to do.
So what you're saying is it was not inspired by a terrible 2004 movie where Adrian Brody played an insensitively person with mental disabilities.
I don't know what you're talking about.
that is
Bryce Dallas Howard had nothing to do with this. Well, it's been mentioned that the story centers on these 2 sisters, and I feel like in this book the characters are very, very different from what you've written in previous works, and I was just kind of wondering what kind of went into building the relationship between the 2 sisters and building their character in general, these 2 characters.
Well, thank you for saying that they seem different, because one of my biggest fears after Digital Extremities and Animus Paradox was like, I've written, I think between those there were like 10 point of view characters, and I was like, I did them all. I don't know what else I can do.
There's only 10
There's only 10. So yeah, I mean,
pyramid of characters.
I mean, that was definitely on my mind of like, I want to make them feel different, but also just like in the situation that they exist, what would this kind of person be? The characters that I dealt with before, they were all kind of just like normal people living their lives, and some of them had like unique things going on in regards to their work or the technology around them, but like that was all very near future for the most part. And this being a total genre shift going to fantasy, and the whole post-apocalyptic nature of it, where there's so much importance in everybody kind of like pulling their weight and helping get food or fuel, or helping the people of this town survive each year. That creates, I think, a very specific kind, like I said before, of like the ability to go out and like do the thing that you need to do, like take on responsibility and like all that kind of thing. So like the story starts when the girls are very young. They're 15 and 13. There's a time skip and they age up a couple years later. But even at that very young age, they're like, all in on helping this town succeed, because if it doesn't, they have nowhere else to go. Mm-hmm. That's kind of just it. So they find things that they enjoy helping with, or that they enjoy doing that is helpful. And sometimes, those are not their favorite thing, or they are not what they set out to do. For example, Anna, she initially wanted to learn magic, but the person who would have taught her dies off page before the story even begins. And so the story begins as Anna's kind of 13 years old and deciding, maybe I'll do this other thing instead that's helpful, that's like somewhat related and helps hold back this apocalypse. And Justine being the apprentice of the farmer. These are like all very practical things. And so that's part of a big part of their character, is like everyone has their own quirks, but everyone also has this like level of practicality to them that is born of that environment.
There's a lot of like dedication to preserving the community that exists too, even if there's reluctance there, which I think is really realistic, you know what I mean? Where we like you're talking about them going into trades that maybe they don't necessarily enjoy, but they understand that, oh, yeah, this is something that is for the benefit of all of us. We have to have somebody that's managing our food and
Mm.
making sure we have enough stores here, even though I don't necessarily like doing all of this. Some of this is a little annoying. Like, there's a lot of that situation happening, I feel like, with the people in Old Town where they're just very much understanding like we have to work together even
Yeah.
though there's some reluctance here.
And like still finding joy in those things,
Hmm.
like in some of the early parts when we see Justina, um, she's working on the farm and stuff, and she's working with this bull named Uli, and
With her
just like
melons.
yep, and just absolutely adores like taking care of this thing. And she's like, your owner is not that kind to you, so I'm going to be extra kind to you, and give you little treats and stuff. And like still being able to, despite the situation, find those moments of joy, and helping one another. And there's that was one of the more important things to me. Like I didn't want this book to feel oppressive or
Sure.
depressing, even though there are those moments. Still, like there's you can make time for enjoying the time with your friends and family and the animals around you, and make time for dinner, and all those little things that for these people keep life worth living.
Yeah, I think we also are living that out in our own timeline where it's like things are incredibly bleak, but you still have to keep persevering and find moments of joy in your own life. So yeah.
Yeah, this book has become uncomfortably reassuring for me, and it's tempting to sort of give in to things are just terrible and that's the way they are, but in those terrible moments, you still see people banding together and helping one another, and
Mhm.
supporting one another in whatever ways they can. People continue to create art. They continue to um, do all the things that they're doing, and sometimes even more so. Sometimes they see the bad situation, and it's like, oh, I need to be louder about this thing
Mhm.
now,
Yeah.
because it is being oppressed, or it is being
Sure.
put down in some way. So that's definitely been on my mind in the last couple of months for sure.
Hmm.
Well, and I know you're talking about like how this book does give that inspiration and how it is kind of a different look from what you've done before. We loved your sci-fi books, but it is very impressive to kind of make that switch to a heartening, like a motivational YA fantasy. Like what drew you to write this book?
Um, I mean, like I said, the music and this sort of blend of ideas was very interesting to me. It was a story that I felt like I needed to try, and I like put aside other projects so that I could work on this. And it's probably one of the easiest stories that I've written. Like in terms of just like when I sat down at my computer and I typed it, it just made sense. It wasn't all there in the first attempt. I had to add things to it. This was originally going to be a novella and a standalone at that. And of course, that has not been what I ended up with. I ended up with the first in a what is probably going to be a two-book series, and the second book is already much longer. I'm working on that right now, and this whole thing has just ballooned far beyond what I was anticipating, which is a nice problem to have. But I mean, in terms of like beyond those initial inspirations and all that, um, I did like I am really enamored with stories that kind of tackle two seemingly opposed ideas. And for Copper Skin, Oaken Lungs, that was definitely like that blend of hopelessness and searching for hope, of like we are trapped in this space, we cannot escape it, we have to make the best of this situation, and basically, and Anna is a huge piece of this, of like Um, when we are kind of at our lowest point, let's look around. Let's see what we can find. Maybe there's something that can help us, like beyond this initial problem. Maybe we can do something more here. And that was really important. That felt like an important story to tell. As for it being YA, that was not the original plan. I just needed characters who were brave and dumb enough to kind of take the risks that they do. And I say
think you'll
dumb.
Find that 60-year-olds are often dumb.
Yes. I feel.
Sorry, I don't bring back some off mic stuff.
I say that endearingly. It's the fact that they were so young made it feel more realistic to, like, they've heard these things are dangerous, like, but I haven't tried.
They haven't developed that like self-preservation that people with anxiety in their 30s have.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that's kind of how it became somewhat of a YA story, is like, I had originally had them a little bit older, and I was like, I don't think these people at this age, knowing what they know, would do some of the stuff that I need them to do for this story. So, like, we need to make them a little bit bolder, a little bit, less world weary, and aging them down was a good way to do that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, you mentioned that Eurovision and a specific song inspired a lot of the book here, and there's a lot of lore in different language. Can you tell us a little more about like some of the naming conventions and some of the language included in the book?
Yeah. So, like I said, the story really moved a lot beyond that original inspiration from the song Boudicca Limey. But I did want to pay a homage because that was sort of where it all began. And I don't see a lot of stories that are like specifically Eastern European inspired, especially like the Balkans, like Latvia is. And so it felt like kind of a nice homage to the original inspiration, but also it made the story more unique because it's not like, it is European, but it's not like French or English inspired or whatever it is. So a lot of like the character names are almost all names that you would typically see from Latvia. There is a very specific like naming convention within that I sort of discovered along the way, where all of the women have names that end in E or A, and all of the men have names that end in S. I didn't look deeply enough to know why that is necessarily, but that is a very consistent theme. Not every character in the book is like that. There's like a few, like one or two, I think, that sort of buck the trend, but that's the case in Latvia as well. Like foreigners or, of course, like people can just get named other things.
That's awesome.
So that was a part of it, of sort of keeping that original inspiration represented. A lot of the in-world terminology is based on, or just is, Latvian. So I think there's one point where they just like count down 3, 2, 1 or something, or and that is just Latvian letter or numbers. Other cases, like the times of the day, were very inspired by the times of the day in like the sort of like medieval Christian clock. I forget the exact term, but basically how you would do certain things at Vespers versus before or later in the day. And a lot of that was simplified down to just a couple, like 4 times of the day, which were inspired by the fact that like the position of the sun, and in this world where there's this sort of dark mist cloud surrounding them, the sun's going to be much more dim. The sun's going to be extremely important because, it's of course always important, but when you have less of it, it's easier to place higher importance on something. So those times of day were inspired by Latin and Latvian terms and that sort of religious calendar, which is part of how their religion gets woven into all this, because the different times of the day and the meals that happen at them are all tied to some kind of prayer. And which again comes back into the setting being post-apocalyptic. When you have so little and you know so little about what's going on, faith is a really easy thing to turn to have some answers or put some wishes out into the world.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. So it all kind of like coalesces together in a way. And basically, like, whenever I needed to name something or come up with something new, Latvian was sort of the root language that I pulled from. There were a couple of scenes as well. There's a couple scenes where characters are crossing bridges, and the act of crossing a bridge is actually part of the lyrics of the original song that inspired some of this.
Cool.
That's where I believe that's where the copper part comes from as well, and the oak part, because the translated lyrics of Burman Limey talk about, and I don't have the lyrics in front of me, but it's something to the effect of, you made a bridge of copper and I made one of oak. And so like there's a lot of like very small, like most people will not get them, but there's a lot of very small kind of callbacks to that original inspiration and the culture it comes from. I mean, even toward the end of the book, which I won't spoil the details of, but there is something that happens where a creature emerges, and that creature is based on a mythological creature in Latvian folklore called a puka, which is kind of like their version of a dragon. And I sort of like took pieces of that, put my own twist on it a little bit. Like lots of little things.
Well, first of all, I hope you either tag this creator of this song when you're like doing any of your promos or anything like that, or send them a copy of the book, because I think that that's just such a cool thing that you've built this story.
I'm nervous to send a copy, both because I'm afraid they wouldn't like it. There's no reason to suspect that. I'm just nervous. Also, I shipped a book to my cover artist in Germany recently, and the shipping was awful.
Oh no!
be going even farther.
Send them an emailed copy and be like, "Look, this is inspired by you guys. Like, I would want to know if I inspired a book. That's amazing."
I did mention.
And also, you need to have more confidence because you're a good writer. Adam, you're always just like, "Yeah, I can't believe people like this." Like, it's good.
I'm confident. I'm confident in like sharing the book in general. It's different when it's like, hey, you inspired this thing that I worked on for a year and I'm putting out into the world for people to enjoy. That's a little bit scarier. Maybe
that's
I will.
Fair. I'll just direct them to this podcast episode.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, they're going to be tagged in the comment notes, so
I did mention them in the back of the book, encouraging people to go check them out and everything. So it's not something I'm shying away from.
I mean, we always add music to our Instagram episodes, so I know who I'm adding to this.
There you go, Hannah.
So.
And I'm going to put actually a YouTube link to the song as well in the show notes if everyone wants to check it out.
So we're forcing Adam into this. So.
Adam, there's also just like this really atmospheric look at a lot of the like nature, and especially like the tunnels that are leading out of Old Town, and the way that like you're gonna be mad at me because I'm gonna mess up the pronunciation. The Malcones has shaped things, and it's almost like this Chernobyl-like effect. And I was kind of wondering what it was like writing these natural worlds.
So just a quick aside, the Malcones is that sort of dark mist that I've been talking about. This sort of magical apocalypse that has sort of turned the surrounding world to ash. Most things do not survive it. And in the story, we do see a very limited number of flora and fauna that do. Um, yeah, I mean, I didn't want the apocalypse to be an objectively bad thing, which is a weird thing to say, I think.
Mhm.
But I mean, that's kind of a lot of the things in this story. Um, I didn't want any of it to feel like, oh, well, that's clearly the good thing and that's clearly the bad thing. They might skew one direction or the other, but at the very least, I wanted um, people to either feel ambiguous about it or to understand the reasons things were happening. Now, with the Malconis, it is sort of this unfeeling, unthinking mist. Like, there's nothing really to understand. The fact that it is so ambiguous is kind of part of the point. Like, it is supposed to feel like this liminal, uncomfortable space where sort of anything could happen. In a lot of ways, it is similar to Area X from Annihilation, in that way where, like, it looks familiar enough. Like, there are trees, there are tunnels, there are remnants of what existed there before. Um, but the things that haven't survived are all like these sculptures of ash that can like crumble apart at the slightest touch. And the things that have survived have changed. They've got this sort of violet glow to them, or they've got these sort of mutated traits or whatever. Like, it's supposed to feel awkward, kind of. And I think the more I explored that, the more I just enjoyed working on it and exploring it. It's just a really interesting space, and sort of like helps to fuel the creativity and the curiousness in some of the main characters. So like there was this really interesting symbiosis between this place that couldn't be understood and these people who wanted to understand.
That's
Yeah, I love that.
amazing and rad. I love Area X. The new covers are right behind me on the bookshelves.
Oh, those are
Um,
really pretty.
I loved the new covers. I kept like I never owned the books. They're one of like the books that got me back into reading. And I remember always thinking like, this isn't the right cover. Then I saw those and I was like, that's the right one, actually. That was the one it was always meant to be. Um, no, I really like that comparison though, because Area X is this blend of like technology with this like ethereal, natural kind of nature encroaching on everyone
Mhm.
else. And I do think that you have that here because you also have this like technology with a blend of magic going into the
Mhm.
Malconis and Old
Hmm.
Town. And what was it like kind of building up like this tech where you have these, lanterns or these fixtures that help protect the Old Town, but you also have this magic that's kind of in the background that hasn't been used in a while. Like, what was it like building on that? And can you describe to readers, what to expect with your world?
Yeah, I mean, I I kind of describe my writing journey as having several points at which I had this like aha moment, like these almost awakenings of it's like, oh, you can do that? Like that's really cool. One of those, probably one of the more recent ones, was several years ago when I read Brian McClellan for the first time, who writes the Powder Mage series and the Gods of Blood and Powder, and more recently, there's a new series whose name I'm blanking on. But it explores very similar themes of like a unique magic system that is got many facets, especially in his original two series. You had a more traditional elemental based magical system alongside a blood magic system, which drew power from blood, sacrifice, all those things. And then you also had a magic system based in like black powder, and allowed like people who had this ability could, snort black powder and use it to like curve their shots or become super strong for a short time or ignite barrels of powder from a distance with like a snap of their fingers. And the way all of these magic systems worked together and opposed each other, I really loved. And I brought some of that into Copper Skin, Oaken Lungs because initially I thought it was really fun if this magical apocalypse came in and people turned to technology to stop it. But if there is a magical apocalypse, that means magic exists in the world. And how does that fit in? And almost as a necessity of keeping the story streamlined and easing the reader into the world, that's part of why there isn't a lot of magic in the beginning, is because I wanted to introduce the technology first and the town and some of the characters, and then the magic comes in later after those things have been established. And it's also just like an interesting thing, like, what does it look like when somebody who understands engineering and technology, what happens when that kind of person discovers that they can perform magic, like they've found the tools to do that. And so that was just like a very interesting thing for me that I've been wanting to put into a book for some time. Obviously, multiple magic systems doesn't work so well in Cyberpunk. So this was kind of a fun opportunity to do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really interesting though, because you have like this drawing of like runes is how a lot of the magic is kind of incorporated. And it was interesting to read something where we have a young protagonist that is learning how to wield this magic in this different way, rather than just like some innate power that is like living inside her that she's just like, boom, I discovered.
Yeah, there is no innate magical property to anything in this world. Everything can be learned by anybody. It's just, what skills do you want to spend your time learning, and are you willing to accept the cost of, whatever you choose. Of course, there's a very low cost to something like becoming a butcher. That's probably all profit, actually. Meanwhile, magic is very powerful, and thus, as it tends to, there's a cost to that as well. We don't see a lot of that in this book. There might be a little bit of it in the next one.
Oh, exciting. Well, it's nice because you kind of have like an academic view of it, where like she's studying the theory of magic a lot more often, and that's you have the perfect setup for a board game with this, honestly, where you're like, "Ooh, there's a cost to everything. Do you want to be a butcher? Do you want to just like try to make Old Town better?"
In a past life, I did do card game design, so
you were just ready for it.
Yeah.
Well, and Old Town does rely on working together to ensure that the ways of surviving are passed down to the next generation. We've talked a little bit about this, but like there's this other portion of it of like making sure the next generation is looking at their strengths as an individual and seeing what they're willing to put back into the community. What was it like kind of creating the realities of this world where you have people stuck in a very small space and they need certain roles, but you also want people to kind of be happy and have that light-heartedness that you have in here?
I mean, part of it is definitely like, what do I show the reader to communicate that? Obviously, there's more happening. There's more characters and more jobs and everything happening than what I'm able to show. And I didn't want to overwhelm people with too many characters. I mean, that's part of why the dramatis personae in the beginning of the book exists, is because there are a lot of characters and everybody knows each other's names because they've been living to their other lives. And I wanted to convey that feeling, but of course, like, you have to also ease the reader into that situation. I mean, I think we've all read books where it's like, I can't keep track of the people in this and what's going on and all that. So, like, I chose very specific roles to try and convey that kind of community, uh, in as basically a small amount of characters and time as I could. That's why you have, very important roles. Like Justina is the apprentice of the farmer, which is like obviously a critical role in this society. People need food. But you also have like, and I'm double checking the dramatis personae right now to make sure that I'm getting this right. But that's why you also have characters like Bruno, who is like mentioned once or twice, but he's like the guy who makes all the beer, and that's important for people to like relax and unwind and like have at parties and basically have that lighter side, like you said. It's part of why the town guard is such a prominent group as well, is because like there's also like the town has this history of needing to protect the resources they have from people who might want to take advantage of or overuse or whatever. And so, like, the town guard is like a pretty present force in that as well, and even tying some of them in with the main characters and their family, and showing the history of the town through people who aren't there anymore, like how I mentioned the person who would have been able to teach Anna magic. Monica, she's gone before the story begins, but we still talk about her because she's still important. Like the memory of her is important to the people who were there, and the knowledge that was kind of lost when she died is sort of a big reason that people are in the situation that they're currently in, because they had this local mage who was helpful in different ways, and now they no longer have that resource.
Well, you also have, like, you mentioned this earlier, you have this unique blended family that you've written in this book, that they're pretty much our core group of main characters here. What made you want to decide to, or what made you decide to use a blended family as your core group? And I'll also say that it's nice that they just all get along so well.
Yeah, so that was an accident. Um, I like I said with the cast of characters, um, I wanted to ease people in despite the characters themselves knowing everybody in the town. So that was a way for me to initially introduce like this core group, which was the two sisters, Anna and Justina, their father, and one or two other people. Eschlia, for example. And then after part one, after we've established these characters, their father and Eschlia get married, and the blended family was a really good way for me to sort of bring those characters together. I'll also say, like, I have two half sisters. We have never really called each other that. That's just like the technically what we are. And I mean, everybody in our family gets along. My father's ex-wife comes and joins us for like family get-togethers, especially when my sisters are in town or attending or something. So like everybody, like, there, don't get me wrong, there's little tensions and stuff, but for the most part, everybody gets along. And I think that, like, once I knew I was doing a blended family thing, especially in fiction, I feel like the easy thing is like, oh, this is a source of tension. And I didn't really want to spend time on that, to be honest. I wanted, like, yes, there would be those small arguments or sort of picking at one another occasionally. But people are already having a hard enough time in this world, and I really enjoyed Anna and Justina's relationship, where they would bicker but like ultimately support one another. And once Gustav's, their brother, gets kind of added to the situation, I was most interested in like what skills and insights he would bring as a supportive sort of partner in the things that they end up doing. So yeah, it was something that I've sort of experienced in my personal life, and I thought, it would be much more interesting to show them learning to work together versus butting heads constantly.
Sure.
No, that's awesome. Well, and like you do have this world where a lot of people are getting along. It seems to be kind of unique and almost cozy, but you have this tension that comes in later in the
Hmm.
novel with small spoilers, not too much, but where people are so worried about the future and what it may hold that they make short-sighted decisions that may harm them, or they're coming from fear.
Yeah.
Where did you come up with like adding that specific layer of tension? Because it is a pretty unique layer. It's not some outside force, it's kind of just the inside fears of people.
I mean, again, the setting I feel like dictated a lot of that. There is no outside political entity that would pressure this town. There is no outside army that would threaten it. I mean, even the Malconis is pretty well in check because they have these machines keeping it at bay. And nobody wants to mess with that because if somebody did, that would also spell their end. So there's no outside force that is going to cause conflict. It has to come from within. And I think a lot of the fears that are shown in the book by the people who propagate them, a lot of it is based on this, I think, very human feeling of, I don't understand how we've ended up in this bad situation. If I was in control or if I had a hand on the scale, it wouldn't have happened. So I need to take greater charge over what's going on. You should not be in charge of what's going on. That kind of mixture of feelings that really, like, because of the peacefulness in this place, is not immediately stamped out and just kind of continues to fester in a very unhealthy way. This is sort of kind of what I was talking about when I was saying, like, even the things that might skew toward, negative, possibly villainous behavior. It's like, at least I don't know about either of you or my readers, but like, I understood where they were coming from, where it's like, yeah, if I don't know how the sausage is being made, like, I might also be a little bit concerned about what's going on as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's I really picture that whole storyline in here, like most of this storyline, honestly, I picture as a tragedy. It's not two competing forces where one side is right. It's, some people let fear get the better of them. Even the climax at the very end, which I won't spoil, but there is something that happens toward the very end where it's like, this didn't need to happen. Things just got out of hand very quickly, and we had to protect ourselves.
It's so hard when you're dealing with this type of situation too. I feel like where they were forced to make those types of decisions, and it is kind of rough at the end to read that the
Mhm.
outcome has to be a certain way when you're like, oh, this could have just been a town hall meeting that resolved nicely, and it
Well,
really did
it
not.
also shows like a very specific folly of man, is like our folly is
Yes.
hubris, that like if
Hmm.
we were involved, this wouldn't have happened. But also on
Hmm.
the other side, it's like what you're saying, a lack of communication of like sometimes people just need you to show your work so
Yep.
that they have confidence in what you're doing.
Yeah, and
So,
I wouldn't say that people didn't try to communicate, but maybe
yeah.
they weren't the most effective at it, or the seeds of doubt were already so deep that no amount of communication could have convinced them otherwise. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, there's multiple times through the middle of this book where Justine and the Lord Mayor are like trying to ease people's
Yes.
tensions
Yeah.
and talk through things, and everything is like very cordial as well. But it's just never enough.
Yeah.
Another thing about your writing is you love to write like either an open-ended story or like leave a cliffhanger of sorts, which I do really enjoy, honestly. But I'm also comforted to know that we're going to be diving back into this world in another book. And I was kind of curious, like, will you be getting more into like the backstories of some of the characters that were mentioned and like giving us a little more on like some of the things that happened to them in regards to like disappearances, or maybe some more info on the Malconis and its origins?
So I can't say a lot because I'm still doing the first draft. I've only
Okay.
gotten like 30,000 words written so far, and I'm kind of in the process of evaluating what I've done, where I want it to go, revising the plan for it and everything. So, that being said, I'm pretty confident that we will learn more about the mechanics of how everything works. You mentioned the Malconis, for example. Uh, it will remain this sort of mysterious, ambiguous space. But I do want to dig in a little bit more of like, we've spent, since the first book, we've spent this amount of time learning about it and getting more information about it. And, um, this is the result we've gotten. We're going to dig in more into like the mechanics of the different magic systems, from the technology of like how you keep the Malconis at bay. Also, after the events of book one, we are more competent with magic. So we are
Hmm.
going to delve into that a little bit more. I will say book two was not planned. It exists because I was thinking about the events of book one and where I could possibly take it if I wanted to do a book two. And something came to me, which would be a major spoiler if I said it right now.
Don't say it.
But something came up where I was like, I cannot not write this. Very similar to the first book, where it's like, I can't get this out of my head. I have to put it on a paper.
That's so
Uh,
exciting.
Yeah,
so
can't wait to read it.
that day I decided, I was like, I gotta put a number one in the spine.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
hoping that'll be out sometime in like 2027. We'll see.
Hmm.
Uh, like I said, there's a long way to go, but I'm wrapping up this book now. At time of recording, it is almost out. But when you're hearing this, it is out, so I'm done with it. Um, and I've got one more release later this year with a reference book for authors about like world building and map design. But that book is like, I finished editing it earlier this month. Um, and it's just a matter of formatting at this point. And I have some people helping out with the print formatting, so that job is actually pretty easy for me. So actually, like yesterday, I was working on that plan for book two. So fingers
awesome.
Ooh.
crossed.
Well, as you just said, you're making a reference book about maps, and a huge part of your work is you are, in fact, a map maker. So, can
I
you
am.
tell readers a little bit about making a map for your own world with Old Town in this book?
Yeah, so I actually explored a totally different style than I normally do for the Old Town. Because it's such a small area, like it's not like typically I'll do a large city like this. That's the smallest map I usually do. Um, Usually they're like regional or world maps. Um, with the Old Town, like I really only needed to depict one small location that had a population of like, I think it's like roughly 150 people. So there's more space for more people, but a lot of those buildings are empty, or a lot of that space is taken up by like forest or something, or farm. So I tried a totally different style with this one because the story kind of demanded it. And I like hand sketched individual trees and
Wow.
uh, the buildings, and like important buildings got like unique illustrations, like the old cathedral sort of in the center of town gets this like custom illustration, and the guardhouse, I'm very proud of the little training dummy I put outside of it. You can actually see that on the map. Um, and like even you can see like the smoke rising from some of the chimneys and stuff, and the Malconis surrounding the town. It was a really fun experiment, something that I hadn't really tried before, but just like I was trying to decide how to depict the place, and is like there is no better approach than just like a map of this close-up town.
It's really beautiful. We will link it because I know you
Mhm.
have an image on your website. So you did
Yes.
really well. So I loved seeing the little dummy as you were talking about it. So some fun little Easter egg.
Yeah,
Well,
I really enjoyed working on it. I'm currently working on a commission for a small publisher, and they have a little inset map that I've actually been able to reuse some of that style in, and I'm still working on it right now, but it's gonna have a slightly skewed uh, angle on this city, and I'm gonna have this a similar kind of like smoke rising from it, and um, yeah, every map I learned something new, and that was a really fun one to explore some new ideas.
I love that. Well, just a little last question here. You do
Mhm.
have a fun little character in this book that we haven't talked about much, but it's a little mysterious animal sidekick.
You haven't even been
And
naming it on your social media.
I did earlier this week, I think. I did
Okay.
like a meet the characters, and she was mentioned in one of those slides.
Okay, good.
well, you're very mysterious about it because at first it's very much kind of just like a, oh, cat's gonna cat.
Yeah.
And
So
it
so
kind of
you want to know the
develops into a
backstory
little
on that?
more. Yeah.
Yeah, please
Yeah.
do.
So we should probably name the character. This is Puka.
Hmm.
She is a little orange cat. Um, she's the farmer's cat, and this is the most cat-like character I have ever written because it was never supposed to be a main character. It was a throwaway line in the first draft. In the beginning, where I mentioned the two sisters are like looking at some the bird's nest, and the nest has like orange cat hair in it. That was a throwaway line that I never intended to delve any deeper into. And then I wrote a scene with Groudinge, the farmer, and I was like, oh, it would make sense if the cat was nearby or something. So I like put it running around chasing a butterfly or something. And then later on, um, the cat is sort of inherited by Justine, and I'm like, oh, like the cat isn't going anywhere, so it would make sense if it like
Hmm.
continued to hang around her. And then events proceed to get more and more tense throughout the story, and I'm like, it'd be really funny if the cat was here. And as I delved deeper into this sort of liminal space of the Malconis, the cat sort of took on a life of its own, and a lot like everything sort of began to click together. So like in the most cat-like way, the cat showed up and it just stayed without my asking it to.
It said it's
As
supposed
they
to
are
be
wont to
here.
do.
So
Yep, and we have the classic scenes of like it's a very quiet moment, and the cat knocks like some books off a ledge or something, and
And like looks at
uh,
like, oops.
yes. Um, so yeah, Puka was like one of my favorite surprises from this book.
Mhm.
Just such a fun little addition that I was not anticipating, but ended up being like uh, kind of this comedic relief, and also like a very important character later on, who gets to do some very interesting things with the Malconis.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, they're also just like still a normal cat.
Yep.
Just a cat, but it's a fun
Yeah.
cat. So
Yeah, no, they were very fun to write.
I really enjoyed the cat. Although I will say this off mic because it's going to be spoilers. I don't want to spoil it. So,
Okay.
but Adam, it has been a delight talking about this book, Copperskin, Oaken Lungs, out today, the day this
Everyone go
episode
get it.
releases. Everyone get it. Get Digital Extremities, get Animus Paradox, get all of them. And you actually have some special editions that people can order through Crafty Bookstore.
I believe is done. That was a pre-order exclusive thing. But yeah, I mean, support your local bookstores, indie bookstores. There's a few that I've already partnered with, but my books are published through Ingram Spark, so you should be able to request them wherever you are.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Well, it's also, I will also throw in Copperskin, Oaken Lungs. If it's not today, it should be out on audiobook very soon as well. And I was actually able to work with Dungeon Maestro. He composed music for each chapter to sort of like lead us into it. And so you'll hear that as you listen to the audiobook as well.
Beautiful.
That's awesome. Well, Adam, can you just tell us for a last question what are some things you've been reading, watching, and or enjoying?
Yeah. So I have been reading since the start of the new year. I've read Limelight by Lyndsey Croal. Really cool collection of short stories. They're the ones in the first half especially like absolutely gutted me.
Oh, no.
They were fantastic. It all leans sci-fi, but it's like somewhat near future or like a single very simple concept of like what if there's an android whose whole purpose is to be in films where the character dies and have like this very realistic death because the android dies. Things like that. I have also read the second Murderbot book, which is super good.
Condition.
Yep. It takes a while to get going, but even in that time where it's pretty slow, it's like very funny and lighthearted. I'm currently reading The Left-Handed Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, which I'm not super far into yet, but it was one of those that like I just felt like I needed to check out at some point. I am currently reading Vispilio by Audrey Deboer.
Okay.
It's a sort of Robin Hood-esque reimagination. I'm about 20% of the way through the audiobook right now, and I don't totally know how it's going to proceed, but it feels like very Game of Thronesian, like political machinations and stuff. Like a war has just ended, and the people who are returning from it are not the same. There's like that Robin Hood-esque figure as well in the background who hasn't quite taken on that role yet. And the last one, Boudicca's Daughter by Elodie Harper. Really enjoyed listening to that. It's a like I don't know if you're familiar with the story of Boudicca's rebellion in like ancient Rome. Boudicca was a native Briton. And at the time Rome was expanding into the British Isles, Boudicca was the queen of the Iceni tribe. And after the death of the Iceni king, basically Rome committed this horrendous act against them, and Boudicca rose up, gathered tribes, and fought back. The rebellion in history and in the book was a failure, but it was successful. Like they burned Londinium to the ground and, killed a ton of people and had like minor successes until they were finally stopped. And the story sort of shows that, but then continues from the perspective of Boudicca's daughter, who is not known to history. We don't even know her name, but we know she was sort of part of the rebellion, and we don't know what happened afterwards. So imagining for a moment that she survived it and was taken captive by Romans, what happens next? It was a really cool story, more layered than what I was expecting. I was like, oh, this rebellion is happening really quickly. And then, about 30% of the way through the book, I'm like, oh, this story is not about the rebellion.
Interesting.
Oops.
All of those sound amazing.
Yeah, sorry. I've been putting aside a lot of like film and stuff lately to try and focus more on reading, and I've been doing more map commissions lately. So while I'm illustrating those, I'm listening to audiobooks.
Right.
So I've been able to get through a few more than usual.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you did tell everyone where they can find your books, so everyone please go buy them. But can you tell people where they can find you if they're interested in following along with your works or anything like that?
Yeah, the best place to follow along is my newsletter. I update it roughly once a month. It's all the updates about my work, roundup of any book reviews I've done, some indie book news, like if somebody I know has a new release or a new arc available, stuff like that. If you want to follow me on socials, I am at Adam C. Bassett on Instagram and Threads, and at adamcbassett.com on BlueSky. Those are the places where you're most likely to find me. But of course, algorithms are what they are. You might not see a thing I post. So like I said, newsletter is the best way to actually like make sure you see what's going on.
Awesome. Well, everyone go follow Adam, go buy this book. And, if you want to follow us, you can follow us on all the social media platforms we're on at OWWR Pod. And you can join us tomorrow for our regularly scheduled programming. But Adam, we want to thank you again for coming.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Anytime.
We always love having you on and reading your works.
So,
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Adam. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.